Reopening a public hearing is a rare event for the Safety Board, but it represents the importance we place on finding the cause of this accident. As you know, this is the second Boeing 737 accident since 1991 for which there is no readily apparent cause. While there are similarities between the two accidents, there are also differences. Since Safety Board support of this investigation, in January, we conducted 4.5 days of public hearings in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, receiving testimony on such issues as the Boeing 737 lateral and directional control systems, design, certification, and service history, flight crew training for recovery from unusual attitudes, management and FAA oversight of USAir flight operations, manufacturer's service difficulty programs, and continuing airworthiness standards. Since that time, many more tests and analysis have been conducted on the evidence, and Mr. 𝗨𝗦𝗔𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗁, our investigator in charge, will bring us up to date on the progress of the investigation in just a few minutes. It is understandable why there is so much public interest in this investigation responsible for the investigation. Since the accident, I have met on several occasions with the representatives of family members, many who are in this audience this morning, who lost loved ones on Flight 427. There is nothing I want to accomplish more in my time of service on this board than to find the cause of this crash. I can only say that if we knew what caused this accident, we would not be expending thousands of hours a month on this investigation. We wouldn't have spent $1 million last month on a flight test. We want very much to solve this accident. We want to know what went wrong. We certainly would not endanger the lives of the public by not acting on our findings. We are, of course, looking at rudder issues very hard, and they will be examined again very closely at this hearing. But we need proof to find and cure real problems that will withstand the scrutiny of trained investigators, not wild accusations that are eagerly bandied about by individuals looking for a soundbite on television. When I opened in the hearing in Pittsburgh, I described the purposes of hearings like this in a manner that I think bears repeating this morning. Public hearings such investigation on behalf of the American people, accountability on the part of the FAA, that it is doing its job adequately regulating the industry, accountability on the part of the airline, that it is operating safely, accountability on the part of the manufacturers as to the design and performance of their products, and accountability on the part of the working force, both pilots and machinists, that they are performing up to the standards of professionalism expected of them. Are liability of private parties. That will happen in other forums, and matters dealing with such rights or liability will be excluded from these proceedings. Over the course of this arising from the accident, specifically, we will concentrate in the next few days on the following issues. First, the Boeing 737 Critical Design Review findings and recommendations. At the time we had the Pittsburgh hearing, the FAA was not in a position to give us a final report. They will do so at this hearing. Information on the Boeing 737 directional control system, human orientation and disorientation studies, and Boeing 737 flight control events. At this point, I would like to introduce the other members of the Board of Inquiry. Sitting to my right is Mr. William G. Layner, the Board's Chief Technical Advisor. To my left, Mr. Ron Sleed, the Deputy Director of the Office of Aviation Safety. Again, to my right, at the table seated to my right, your audience's left, is the Board of Inquiry's technical panel. The persons on the technical panel are Mr. 𝗨𝗦𝗔𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗁, the investigator in charge, Mr. Gregory Phillips, the Senior Systems Investigator, Mr. Thomas Jackie, the Vehicle Performance Investigator, Dr. Malcolm Brenner, seated at the table to the rear, our Governmental Relations, Ms. Julie Beal, the Director of the Safety Board's Public Affairs Office, and Ms. Shelley Hazel, my confidential assistant, are here to assist me. Also, Dr. Bernie Loeb, who is the director of our Office of Aviation Safety, is also seated to my rear. And finally, from the Safety Board, I would like to recognize Carolyn Dargan and Rhonda Underwood, who are both here assisting us in all the administrative matters. All these members of the safeties and associations whose participation in the hearing is deemed necessary in the public interest and whose special knowledge will contribute to the development of pertinent evidence are designated as parties. The parties assisting the Safety Board in this hearing have been designated in accordance with these rules. As I call the name of each party, and they're seated at the tables in front of me, I would appreciate if the name, title, and affiliation for the record, and please introduce the other individuals that are at the table with you. First, I would like to call on the Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bud Donner. I'm the manager
For the Airline Pilots Association. Captain Robert 𝗦𝗫𝗶𝗵𝗁, an investigator on the Human Factors group on the 427 accident. Mr. Kenny Kylia, engineer staff with our staff here in Washington.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your participation. USAir, Inc. General.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. 300 and 400 Fleet, Captain Jim Gibbs.
Thank you very much for your participation. Boeing Commercial Airplane Group.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm John Purvis. I'm Director of Air Safety Investment People. Rick Howes, who is been the coordinator for this accident ever since the day one. He works for me. Gene McGrew, who's our 737 Chief Project Engineer. Dick Kullberg, who will be a witness later on.
Aviation hydraulic fluid. To my left is Mr. Jim Siegel.
Would you please turn your mic on, please, and begin again?
Is that it on now?
Yes,
I'm
thank
sorry. My name is Frank Jacks.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Jack 𝗦𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗵𝗁, and I'm a member of the District 141 Flight Safety Committee, and I was also coordinator for the Machinists Union on the Flight 427 accident investigation. Also members of the Flight Safety Committee on my right are Mr. Mike Gardner, on my left are Mr. Olney Anthony, and also Mr. Terry Kleiser. Thank you.
I want to, at this time, publicly thank all the parties for the assistance and cooperation, and the selection of the witnesses to testify to these issues was finalized. Copies of the witness list developed at the pre-hearing conference are available at the press table. There are numerous exhibits to be used in this proceeding. Copies of the exhibits are also at the press table for review. Be responsible for the conduct of the hearing. I will make all rulings on the admissibility of evidence, and all rulings will be final. The record of the investigation, including the transcript of the hearing and all exhibits entered into the record, will become part of the Safety Board's public should contact the court reporter directly. At this time, I would like to acknowledge some other officials who are observing this hearing. If you would just please stand when I call your name, and I'll go through these very quickly. CFM International, Mr. Paul Mengler. Thank you. The National Air Traffic Controllers Association, Mr. William West. The Transportation Union, Workers Union number 545, Mr. Jürgen Peter Schultz. The Association of Flight Attendants, Ms. Nancy Gilmer. John Chan with the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore. Mr. Dave King with the AAIB of the United Kingdom. And Rich 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 of the Senate Aviation Committee. Finally, and most importantly, I want to recognize and welcome the family members of the individuals who lost their lives in the crash of Flight 427. With that, we will begin this proceeding, and I will turn it over to Mr. Howder. Or Mr. Sleed, who will, since Mr. Howder is our first witness. I'm sorry.
Give us your full name and business address for our record, please.
My full name is Thomas Edward Howder. I'm a senior accident investigator for the National Transportation Safety Board.
And how long have you worked with the Safety Board?
For approximately 11 years.
Could you
Have an instrument rating. I have a degree in aeronautical and astronautical engineering from Purdue University. I have a MBA from George Mason University in operational systems.
Thank you. You can proceed with your statement.
Thank you. USAir Flight 427, a Boeing 737-300, registration November 513 Alpha Uniform, crashed while descending to land at Pittsburgh International Airport, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The airplane was being operated as a scheduled passenger flight under instrument flight rules from Chicago O'Hare International Airport, Chicago, Illinois, to the Pittsburgh International Airport. During the approach to landing, control of the airplane was lost. 32 persons aboard the airplane were fatally injured. During the previous public hearing held in January of this year, I provided a detailed description of the events leading up to the accident and the status of the investigation. I would now like to provide the events that recorder, cockpit voice recorder, and maintenance records. A partial technical review was held with the parties to the investigation, and it was agreed that the investigation into these areas was completed. The investigative groups that are still active are systems, aircraft performance, standby rudder actuator, actuator rods, trim system components, and autopilot systems. The safety board may obtain additional parts from the wreckage if needed. In fact, electrical connectors from the electronics bay were recently retrieved to be examined for evidence of blue water contamination. The report augments the safety board's investigation. The team made 27 recommendations intended to enhance the safety of the 737 and other transport category airplanes through design, maintenance, and operational means. However, the team did not identify any specific design deficiency or failure mode that collected real-world data on the effects of a 737 entering the wake vortices of a 727. The tests used a highly instrumented USAir 737 and the FAA 727, which had been equipped with smoke generators. During the tests, over 160, a thorough evaluation of all this data has not yet been completed by the Aircraft Performance Group. However, based on the initial findings of the flight tests, it was found that a further refinement of the 737 engineering simulator and the kinematic studies operated in Europe and the United Kingdom. The data will be examined to determine if there are any events where the rudder exceeds the yaw damper authority or pilot inputs, or if there are any unexplained rudder events. The systems group completed a detailed dimensional analysis of the rudder power control unit from Flight 427. There were no discrepancies found. Additionally, the group examined possible effects of the lock. In all cases, the unit behaved as anticipated. The tests found that jamming the input rod would not result in a runaway condition when the yaw damper system was exercised. The systems group has identified a Boeing 737-200 series that is being removed from service and provided to a museum system. Some of these tests could result in structural damage to an airplane. Therefore, it is fortuitous that a 737 became available that is going out of service. Data are continuing to be collected and analyzed, all reported unusual events regarding the Boeing 737 series. These events will be discussed at this hearing. The Human Performance Group is examining all possible pilot reactions to unexplained events, such as severe roll, an unusual yaw damper failure, dual hydraulic failure, standby rudder actuator, the rudder power control unit and its servo valve, structural failure, and electrical short circuits. Mr. Chairman, this completes my statement. Jim Cash can present the findings of the acoustic examination.
Mr. Cash, would you give us your full name and business address, please?
My name is James Robert Cash, and it's a National Transportation Safety Board in Washington, D.C.
And what is your position at the board?
My job is a Senior Cockpit Voice Recorder Specialist.
And how long have you worked at the safety board, present position?
I have a BS degree from Syracuse University in Electrical Engineering, and I was a Air Force pilot flying F-4s for approximately 8 years.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Good morning, ladies. The cockpit voice recorder receives its electrical power from the aircraft. So anytime there's power on the aircraft, the voice recorder is running. The unit is an endless loop recorder, constantly erasing the older information, recording the newer information, listening to on his headset. Another channel is for the co-pilot's information. Again, it's identical. Sorry.
Are we going to dim the lights slightly? So can you see the screen in the rear? We could, someone with the hotel available or not? One from the hotel, and Mr. Benson, you may see if we can get someone to help us with the lighting when we have these, or train someone.
The 3 crew member airplane is normally connected to the 3rd crew member's audio selector panel. In these 2 crew member airplanes, similar to the Boeing 737, the 4th CVR channel contains audio information from the cockpit area microphone. This open microphone is usually mounted in the overhead instrument panel between the crew members and is our primary microphone for picking up all the cockpit sounds or noises. On this aircraft, on the individual audio tracks of the CVR. In addition to the normal area microphone and the 2 crew member microphones, which were both hot, the microphone selector switch on the jump seat audio selector panel was inadvertently left in the oxygen mask position. This enabled the microphone in the oxygen mask to be hot, similar to microphones that were picking up the audio information, recording it on the CVR.
Mr. Cash, this is minor, but the CVR is all you have mentioned, and it's a cockpit voice recorder, right?
Yes, sir.
And would you mind telling everybody in the audience just a little what it looks like and where it's located?
The cockpit voice recorder is a crash-protected unit, which is usually, in this airplane, is actually mounted in the aft cargo compartment. It is designed to, again, record